How founders make really bad choices. This video will go through a model in which I make decisions when it comes to my life as a founder, specifically business decisions. And I've seen founders make really ugly decisions and have to undo a lot of stuff. And hopefully, I catch them before they make those fatal choices based on learning experience. I tell people all the time, 7-time funded founder, 2-time exit, but that just means I failed 5 times, one time completely catastrophically. So learn from us, learn from our mistakes. And that's the reason I think I'm qualified to be an advisor, the lead advisor startups.com, because I process my failures more than other people have with lots of therapy. But if I went back and I said, here's how I made some really bad choices, I want to share with you in this video the framework that I learned that's completely changed the way that I make decisions, business decisions when it comes to being a founder. And again, this video is inspired by people who, I spend time with, and I really care about the founders that I advise, that I don't want you to make the same really bad choices. So you can see that there's a piggy bank with a metaphor here of dropping in coins, and it's all about the sense model. And it comes from this book, The Millionaire Fast Lane. I remember reading a blog post and a review about this book, and I beelined it to the to my local, bookstore, where you can just sit in a chair. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna, buy this book. And I read the whole thing sitting in. I was so enthralled by the book. I sat in a chair and I did not leave the store until I read the whole thing. I read it right there. I devoured it. It was so good. And it's all about the Millionaire Fast Lane. And, even though it's kind of got one of these clickbaity titles and, to sell books or whatever, it's a bestseller for a reason. It really pokes holes or blows holes in the theories or the different sort of paradigms or just accepted normalized things that people think about when it comes to entrepreneurship. And it's not just for a startup founder. I'm going to apply this in a startup founder edition version, but this applies for anything entrepreneurial. So you can use this and recommend it and tell other people thinking about doing business. So it all comes down to the sense model. Okay, so here's how it works. Sense stands for control, entry, need, time, scale. Not too sure if that means something for DeMarco there who's writing it, but for me, the sense model makes sense. SENSE makes sense. And it stands for control, entry, need, time, scale. And I'm going to add a bonus joy. So let me explain this to you. So don't do anything unless you can maximize your control. This has to do with equity. This has to do with, if you think about it, when you go work for a job, you have lost complete control. You're not in control of the company. So at any point in time, get as much control as possible. And this, again, may come down to equity. And this is what scares me. Like if I see a founder and they get a deal and someone comes in and says, oh, you know what? And I've made this mistake before. I've given away control in a company from an equity voting board standpoint, and I have regretted it. Oh, my word. So if I don't understand where I can have control, and put it this way, yeah, they're going to own the majority of the company, or you get to make all the decisions as a founder. And if someone's going to come in, and if you watch my other videos, I talk about this all the time. I'm perfectly happy, willing to give 50% equity ownership to the right person after, long courtship and all these things, like someone that I really trust and has proven and earned that 50%. But now the control, I see the dynamics. We can at least lock each other up. They can't have 51% and then, take it from me in some sort of way. I say this all the time. I was talking to my son the other day, and he has someone that wants to help him with his YouTube, TikTok. He's making money on YouTube and TikTok. And I said, that sounds great. I want to see the contract. And he's like, well, I'm just going to give him access to my accounts. And I'm like, no, you're not going to do that. That it makes no sense. You're giving away control. That is not a proper business decision to make. So you want to think, okay, who has the control, and hope for the best, but plan for the worst? What happens if things start to fall apart, et cetera? And if you don't have control, you don't maximize the control, not a good way to make a decision. You're compromised right away. Next is entry. It's all about how hard is it to enter into the marketplace. It needs to be hard for your company to be worth something. If it's easy to enter into the marketplace, everybody can do it, and everybody thinks it's a great idea to do it, you're going to have so much competition. Your startup, your company is not going to have any value. You want to be going into something that's harder to enter. So there's competitive barriers to entry that other people, either the entry, the barrier is you've got so much domain expertise, it would take somebody else the 10,000 hours and 10 years to become an expert and get to you, at which point in time you want to make sure you control that IP. You see how it works? I've given away my IP. I've lost control of my IP. I've lived to regret it. I regret it to this day. I'm sitting on stuff that I'm like, I lost control of it, and then therefore I lost my competitive barrier to entry, and it sucks. So entry, if it's easy to enter, there's going to be competition. That's not where you want to go. I'm talking about things like, start your own business, all those opportunities, start your own business, working from home for $100, buy this kit, all these things, take this course. Well, if it's easy for everybody to do it, like if it costs $1 million to do the course, well, then I'm going to look at it because then nobody else is doing it, and it better be a $5 or $10 million opportunity, right? But if you can plunk down $100 and do it and enter, which is also one of the reasons a lot of startups fail, because it's so easy to enter and do a startup and start a startup and become a founder. You have a higher degree of startups going by the wayside because they're picking things that are easy to enter into the marketplace. Do something that's hard. Enter into a hard marketplace that people want to ignore and say, there's no way I'm going there. If you're the one that figure it out, like when a founder tells me it's really hard to crack this code in this marketplace, we got lots of resistance, I get interested because I'm like, if there's a unique way to get in there that nobody else wants to try, well, guess what? You'll have first movers advantage and you'll entrench yourself. It's going to be great. So entry. Next is need. DeMarco, he says something really great. He says, as an entrepreneur, don't chase problems, or don't chase money, chase problems. And so he says, is there a real need in the marketplace for what you're doing? And in Startup Land, I like to do it on 3 levels. So is it a vitamin? So do you really need vitamins? Not really. They're nice to have. So you're going to have a harder time. Is it a painkiller? So does it relieve a pain that they're feeling a little better? Or is it an antibiotic? Is it penicillin, right? That if you don't take it, you're going to die, right? And so therefore, the higher the need, the more opportunity you have, as DeMarco says, get into that millionaire fast lane to build a startup that's going to be of higher value. So you have to be very realistic. Do people actually need it? And if it's not a need, it's a vitamin, it's nice to have, then you should reevaluate, because guess what? You're going to have a lot harder time trying to sell it out there. But if it's penicillin and they're going to die without it, well, that need is really great. You're in for a good time. And typically, it's also a sign, the reason it's hard to enter, because nobody's solved that problem yet. Next thing is time. And this is really great. If you're trading dollars for hours, you're not an entrepreneur. You can't build anything, right? You have a job. That's what DeMarco says. If you're trading dollars for hours, or if your revenue is based on your time, you have a job. You're not building a business. So I have worked really hard. As soon as I learned this, I was like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. I need to get control of where I use my time. You see how they all link together. And now I'm going to charge based on value. I'm not going to be based on hours. If someone wants to lock me down based on hours and salary and all that stuff, it better be a darn awesome high hourly rate, because I'm not interested in locking my livelihood in for time, because time is very finite, right? So if you're going to build something, this is where automation comes in. It's so important. Automate it so that you can make money while you sleep. And that's the whole thing. If you're a service provider, like if you get into a business where you have to trade dollars for hours, it's not the best business to be in. But if you get into a business and let's say it is service-based business, but you can quickly divorce yourself from time delivering it and you're managing other people's time because they're willing to take a job, give up control and, all that stuff. And their time makes you money. And all you got to do is get more people to give more time and you're making money and you can, grow that. Then that is where you want to get to as soon as possible. The final thing is scale. Can it scale? And if you've done all these other things, you have control, you're entering a market where it's hard and you've got competitive barriers of entry and it's a high need and you've been able to separate your time, you're going to scale. But you got to figure out, well, the more you can scale, the more valuable your company is going to be. That's the reason in Startup Land, we talk about automated customer acquisition, not customer acquisition. It's one thing to go acquire a customer by doing hand-to-hand combat and doing sales, which you'll probably have to do in the beginning just to learn how to scale it. But this is the last thing. Once you've got all that in place, how do you automate it? How do you have automated customer acquisition, automated, delivery? Because guess what? If you're automating your delivery and it's not attached to your time, well, you can make it cheaper, which will probably make it scale a lot faster because more people want to access it because they see the value and you can just you scale it because, for example, using software margins are awesome because software scales infinitely. You just need more server space and, bandwidth and all that stuff. But it's just absolutely amazing. You can completely start to optimize your operation for scale. So you want to make decisions based on sense, control, entry, need, time, scale. And if it doesn't tick these boxes, you can evaluate them. It doesn't hit a 10 out of 10 in all those boxes and you're moving in and it's like a 2 out of 10, you should be thinking about it. So maybe do yourself a favor and say, if it's not a 5 out of 10, I'm not even going to think about it, right? This isn't a business opportunity for me, or this isn't a partnership, or this isn't the investor I should take on, or the revenue stream, or the revenue opportunity, business expansion, all that stuff. Think it through in terms of sense. Again, I just want to say there's nothing wrong with just getting a job. There's nothing wrong with buying into a business that you have to trade time for dollars. It's a service-based business. You've pretty much bought yourself a job, right? With a little more control. So you've got at least a few things going on. But if you want to make the best decision, optimize for your future, use your common sense, CENTS. The final is joy. This, I think, is extremely important. This is part of a new investment thesis I'm going to be releasing. If it makes sense, but it sucks the living joy out of you, I would also question that because joy, that emotion is what's going to take you through the real tough times. And as a founder, it's super hard. You may be able to power through, but what happens if your employees come on board and they have no joy? You are a cranky, cantankerous, curmudgeon-y founder, and you're the worst boss ever, and nobody has any joy working with you. Well, how well do you think your startup is going to scale? How good do you think customer service is going to be? How much product development is going to be on the high NPS, Net Promoter Score, and you're going to get referrals? Think about this for a moment. So if you got all these and it makes sense, but it sucks the living joy out of you, you can't find that joy factor in there. And I define joy as motivated to be with someone, be with you in my strength, but especially my weakness. If you're not finding joy, you're not enjoying what you do. It doesn't mean you have to feel happy all the time, but if you don't enjoy it, I would question that as well, because you may come out of the gate strong, but you may end up just regretting and totally be miserable. And, if you think about Men in Black, one of the sequels, Tommy Lee Jones character says to Will Smith's character, do you know what the most powerful force is in the world? And Will Smith says, like a cheeky monkey, sugar. And he's, Tommy Lee Jones says, no, it's regret. And if you don't enjoy your startup, I've seen people on the backside of this. They're like, why did I do it? I have no joy in my life whatsoever. I could care less about all the success that I've had. You don't have to sacrifice joy to be a successful founder or entrepreneur. And you don't have to sacrifice the entrepreneurship and the business for the sake of joy. they can be in a package together. They actually work really well together. They self-optimize with each other. There you have it. Startups.com. Check us out. I'm always inviting people because I think it's, one of the best communities ever. This is where you can join us for office hours. We have more questions and we can continue talking about this model. In the meantime, if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, please leave a comment and ask me any questions that you want. I always appreciate the feedback. Thank you for joining me and let me rant on. And I hope this made sense. See what I did there? I'll see you in the next video.